while the most famous of their kind would appear in Bilbo's third age adventure, the greatest and most vile would live and die far earlier. Today on Nerd of the Rings, we cover the dragons of Middle-earth. We don't know the exact year Morgoth began creating the dragons, but we do know the reason. In the early wars of the First Age, the Noldor dealt great blows against the Dark Lord in war. In the midst of a 400-year siege of Angband, where the Noldor held Morgoth in check within his fortress, he realized orcs alone would not win him victory in battle. Thus, Morgoth creates the very first dragon, Glaurung. The father of dragons was not a winged creature like his later relatives. In fact, all the initial dragons of Morgoth's design were land-bound. In 260 of the First Age, in the middle of the siege, Glaurung reveals himself for the first time, against the wishes of his master. He emerges from Angband and manages a small victory, despite still being young and not yet grown to full strength. He pushes the Noldor from Ardgallen and causes them to retreat to Dorthonion and the arid Wethrin. He begins to defile Ardgallen in his victory, but it would not last. Fingon, along with a company of mounted archers, comes to Glaurung and humbles the great worm, causing him to retreat back to Angband. Morgoth is displeased that his secret weapon had revealed himself prematurely, and would not allow the dragon to leave the fortress for nearly 200 years. Finally, in 455, Glaurung is fully grown, and is unleashed upon the elves. Glaurung leads Morgoth's largest army of Balrogs and orcs assembled to date, utterly burning the lands of Ardgallen, creating a charred desert known afterward as Amfalgri. 17 years later, the Free Peoples would strike back against Morgoth. The Union of Maedhros, consisting of armies in both the east and the west, marches against Angband. On the third morning of this battle, Glaurung and his dragons enter the fight, in Morgoth's last effort to defeat his enemies. The strength and terror of the Great Worm were now great indeed, and elves and men withered before him, and he came between the hosts of Maedhros and Fingon, and swept them apart. The elves divided, Glaurung battles in the eastern portion of the conflict, where he would have destroyed the Noldor, were it not for the dwarves of Belegost, led by Lord Azagal. The dwarves, with their great battle masks, were able to withstand the dragon fire, and Glaurung's skin was not so tough that it was impenetrable. The dwarves hewed at the dragon with their axes, and Glaurung, driven into a rage, tramples Azagal. Yet with his last breath, Azagal drives a knife into the belly of the dragon. Glaurung flees from the battle, yet the battle was already won. The forces of elves, men, and dwarves would have catastrophic casualties in what would come to be known as the Nirnaeth Arnoediad, the Battle of Unnumbered Tears. wouldn't be until 40 years later that Glaurung would once again be put to use by Morgoth. By 495, Morgoth controls nearly the entire north of Beleriand, and there are few who openly oppose him. One such realm is Nargothrond, where King Orodreth is convinced to act in open hostility by his advisor, Turin, son of Hurin. Finally, after a number of attacks on his forces, Morgoth sends Glaurung and an army of orcs to Nargothrond. In another ill-advised move, Turin and Orodreth ride out to meet their enemy in the Battle of Tumhalad. The elves are crushed, Orodreth is slain, and Turin is unable to reach the city before the great dragon. Glaurung passes over the bridge, crosses the river Narog, and destroys the doors of the city. In this moment we learn of another power of Glaurung, the power of his words and his gaze. Turin arrives at Nargothrond to find the city sacked, and as he goes to confront the dragon, he is transfixed by Glaurung's gaze, which freezes him where he stands. The captives of Nargothrond are led past Turin, and the dragon presents him with a choice: to pursue the captives and rescue the elf princess Finduilas, or return to Dorloman and rescue his mother and sister, who are living in misery and servitude. Then suddenly Glaurung withdrew his glance and waited, and Turin stirred slowly as one waking from a hideous dream. Then coming to himself with a loud cry, he sprang upon the dragon, but Glaurung laughed, saying,
"If you wish to be slain, I will slay you gladly. But small help will that be to Morwen and Nienor. No heed did you give to the cries of the elf woman. Will you deny also the bond of your blood?"
But Turin, drawing back his sword, stabbed at his eyes, and Glaurung, coiling back, swiftly towered above him, and said,
"Nay, at least you are valiant, beyond all whom I have met. And they lie who say that we of our part do not honor the valor of foes. See now, I offer you freedom. Go to your kin if you can. Get you gods. And if elf or man be left to make tale of these days, then surely in scorn they will name you, if you spurn this gift."
Then Turin, being yet bemused by the eyes of the dragon, as if he were treating with a foe that could know pity, believed the words of Glaurung, and turning away he sped over the bridge. But as he went, Glaurung spoke behind him, saying in a fell voice,
"Haste you now, son of Hurin, to Dorlomin, or perhaps the orcs shall come before you once again. And if you tarry for Finduilas, then never shall you see Morwen or Nienor again, and they will curse you."
As Turin turns north to Dorloman, the dragon laughs once again in his malice. For Turin has fallen for the dragon's lie. for his mother and sister had left long ago, and now dwell safely in Doriath. Glaurung drives away the orcs, denying them further plunder, and breaks the bridge. He lies down to sleep on his great hoard, in much the same way as his later descendants. The following year, Glaurung encounters Morwen and Nienor as they come to Nargothrond seeking news of Turin. Quickly detecting their approach, he lies in the river, causing a great steam and stench to cover the area. The women and their elf guard are separated, and Nienor comes face to face with the dragon, who also puts her under his spell. In this case, however, Glaurung uses his power to wipe Nienor's mind of all her memory, leaving her to flee into the wild. As Glaurung returns to his conquered city, he detects the presence of Mablung, one of the elves accompanying Nienor and Morwen. In this moment, we realize there is a deep connection between dragon and master, as he speaks with the very voice of Morgoth. But he turned before he went in and looked back eastward, and there came from him the laughter of Morgoth, dim but horrible, as an echo of malice out of the black depths far away. And this voice, cold and low, came after. There you lie like a vole under the bank, Mablung the mighty. Ill do you run the errands of Thingol. Haste you now to the hill, and see what is become of your charge. Glaurung would rule Nargothrond as a dragon king for the next few years. By 498, he begins to send parties of orcs to attack the Mannish realm of Brethil, which forces Turin to reveal himself once more. The following year, Glaurung sets out to face his mighty foe himself. However, Turin predicts the dragon's path, and taking inspiration from Lord Azagal before him, Turin hides out in the gorge of Kabed and Aras. So as the great serpent casts his front legs across the ravine, Turin stabs him with his sword, Gurkha, all the way to the throat. Even in his final moments, Glaurung is dangerous and cunning. As Turin pulls the sword from the dragon, its blood covers his arm and renders Turin unconscious. Later, Turin's wife, Ninio, comes upon the scene to discover her husband apparently dead. With his last breath, Glaurung reveals his ultimate deception, that Ninio is in fact Turin's sister Nienor, and gives her back her memory. In despair at the truth and the loss of her twice beloved Turin, Nienor casts herself from the brink and is lost to the river far below. Turin, waking at the death of the dragon, discovers the truth for himself from another who had heard Glaurung's last words, and casts himself upon his own sword. With Glaurung dead, Morgoth had suffered a great loss. However, his first dragon would not be his greatest. Other dragons, known as Glaurung's brood, either by parentage or simply others of the same species, would wreak havoc in further wars and battles. Just 11 years after Glaurung's death, Morgoth would launch an attack on the last great hope of the Noldor, for he had finally discovered the location of the hidden city of Gondolin. He sends an army of orcs, balrogs, and dragons, and catches the elves by surprise. The city and much of its population is destroyed. While we don't know how many dragons there were, we are told they were many and terrible. Aside from Glaurung, we know the names of only 2 other dragons of the First Age. One is Gostir, of whom we only know its name, which means Dreadglance. The other would not be revealed until the War of Wrath, which begins in the year 545. Finally deciding to move against Morgoth, the Valar send a host of Valinor to Middle-earth, where a massive force of elves, men, Maiar, and possibly even some Valar, make war upon an uncountable force of orcs, along with the Balrogs of Morgoth. This war would last for 40 years. In the final years of the conflict, facing the defeat of his forces, Morgoth unleashes his last and greatest weapon, the winged dragons, never before seen in Middle-earth. The host of Valinor is caught by surprise, overwhelmed by the sheer devastation of the flying fire drakes of Angband. The dragons are led by Ancalagon the Black, the largest and most powerful dragon in the history of the world. The skies erupt with lightning and flame as the dragons push back the army of Valinor. Just as it appears that Ancalagon and his winged dragons will bring ultimate victory to Morgoth, help comes from the skies. Erendil, the father of Elrond and Elros, arrives in his ship, blessed with the power of flight by the Valar. Alongside him are the great eagles of the First Age, led by Thorondor. The aerial battle lasts for an entire day. In the end, Erendil slew Ancalagon the Black, the mightiest of the dragon hosts, and cast him from the sky, and he fell upon the towers of Thangorodrim, and they were broken in his ruin. Thus ended the greatest of the flying dragons, and with him the hope of Morgoth's victory. The host of Valinor retakes their lost ground and more, destroying the majority of Morgoth's army. The Dark Lord would be captured and thrust through the Door of Night, and the few remnants of his army were scattered, including orcs, Sauron, a lone Balrog, and some dragons. The dragons would flee to the northern wastes, far from any lands of men and elves. There they would live on, infesting and breeding in the area known as the Withered Heath, from which would come future great dragons that would plague the dwarves of the Third Age. Dragons like Smaug. As for the Second Age, we are given no specific events or battles involving the dragons. However, we do know that they posed a serious threat during this period of over 3,400 years. For in the Silmarillion, we read of the men who were not among the Edain of the First Age, and men dwelt in darkness, and they were troubled by many evil things that Morgoth had devised in the days of his dominion. Demons, and dragons and misshapen beasts, and the unclean orcs that are mockeries of the children of Iluvatar. And the lot of men was unhappy. But it was not only the men that would be plagued by these foul creatures of Morgoth, for in the Third Age we would see the dwarves repeatedly become victims of the Uruloki, or fire drakes, as well as the cold drakes of the north.
While we know Smaug would sack Erebor in 2770 of the Third Age, we're going to go back further to find the most likely origin for this chiefest of calamities. After Morgoth is defeated at the end of the First Age, there are still many of his dragons left in Middle-earth, not to mention one Balrog that we know of. And it's with this Balrog where we begin today's story. In 1980 of the Third Age, the Balrog is awakened by the dwarves of Moria under King Durin VI. This leads to Durin's death and the abandonment of Moria by the dwarves. Driven from their home, a contingent of Durin's folk under King Thrain I established Erebor, the kingdom under the mountain, in 1999. Most of Durin's folk, however, would come to dwell in the Grey Mountains, to the northwest of Erebor. One of the few documented stories about a specific dragon comes in the following year when Scatha the Worm, who had captured treasure from the dwarves of the Grey Mountains, is slain by Fram of the Eothade people, the ancestors of the Rohirrim. You can learn more about these men in my video on the Eothade. Over 200 years after the Lonely Mountain is established, King Thorin I abandons Erebor in 2210, so that he and his people can rejoin the rest of Durin's folk in the Grey Mountains. There they would live in relative peace until the year 2570. Over the years preceding this, the dragons of the north had multiplied and become a mighty force. In 2570, they make war on the dwarves of the Grey Mountains and begin plundering the halls of Durin's folk. Impressively, the dwarves hold their own for 19 years. But in 2589, the dragons come to the halls of King Dane I. The king, his son Fror, and likely many others were slain in the attack. The father and son are killed outside the halls of the king by a cold drake, a name for a dragon that cannot breathe fire. After this final blow in the war of the dwarves and dragons, the dwarves of the Grey Mountains abandon their home. With the death of King Dane I, the kingship passes to his son Thror, the grandfather of Thorin Oakenshield. Thror leads his people back to the Lonely Mountain, re-establishing the kingdom of Erebor. Gror, who is the king's youngest brother, leads a group of Durin's folk to the Iron Hills, where they create another settlement. Gror is the grandfather of Dane II, also known as Ironfoot, who would later succeed his cousin Thorin as king under the mountain. It's important to note that we don't know whether Smaug was involved in this conflict in the Grey Mountains. Both Smaug and Gandalf refer to him being young when he comes to Erebor in 2770. But old and strong when Bilbo comes there in 2941. So it's entirely possible that he was either too young to partake in the war, or not even born yet when the war ended in 2589. With the War of the Dwarves and Dragons now over, the dwarves of Erebor would once again have a period of peace. this time for around 180 years. During this time, the kingdom under the mountain flourishes. However, their old enemy would return in the form of the greatest dragon of the Third Age, Smaug. Like many others, Smaug hears of the tremendous wealth of Erebor, and in 2770 he flies south and sacks the kingdom under the mountain. Tolkien describes Smaug's flight to be like a hurricane. He attacks at night, catching both the dwarves and the men of Dale off guard. It is said that he first lands on the mountain itself before flying down to the woods around Erebor and setting them ablaze. The dwarven warriors come out of the front gate to fight the dragon, but are all killed. Smaug then turns his attention to the warriors of Dale, killing most of them, including Lord Girion, the ancestor of Bard. The dragon then returns to the mountain, slaying more of the dwarves and entering through the front gate. King Thror and his son Thrain II survived the attack by escaping through the secret back door. Thorin, who was just 24 years old at the time, was one of the few dwarves who wasn't inside the mountain during the attack and manages to escape as well. Smaug takes the mountain and the treasure within for his own. In the aftermath, the area of Erebor and Dale, which had been scorched by the dragon, comes to be known as the Desolation of Smaug. Durin's folk, once again forced from their home, are left to their exile, eventually coming to Dunland, where they would live for a time before the War of the Dwarves and Orcs, culminating in the Battle of Azanabalzar in 2799. 3 years later, in 2802, Thrain, now king of his people, settles in the Blue Mountains west of the Shire. For over 170 years, Smaug dwells with his treasure hoard, leaving only occasionally, presumably to hunt for food. We know that he would exit through the Great Gate by night and come to Dale and carry away people, especially maidens, to eat, until Dale is ruined and all the people either dead or gone. Smaug broods upon his treasure for a total of 171 years. This causes a phenomenon known as dragon sickness to come upon the treasure. This is a somewhat mysterious condition, as we really only know it is put upon gold on which a dragon has long brooded. Looking back at our earlier tale of Fram of the Eothade, who killed the dragon Skatha, he refused to part with any of the treasure, despite the fact that this treasure likely belonged to the dwarves of the Grey Mountains before being taken by the dragon. It is believed that Fram was killed by the dwarves for this offense. Now, if you're curious what the dwarves did during this time that Smaug broods upon his treasure, check out my video on Thorin Oakenshield. We next hear of Smaug when Bilbo Baggins makes his way into the depths of Erebor in October 2941. After Bilbo steals the cup on October 22nd, Smaug takes notice. In The Hobbit, it says, "Dragons may not have real use for all their wealth, but they know it to an ounce as a rule, especially after long possession, and Smaug was no exception." This angers the dragon, who leaves his chamber and searches the mountainside for the culprit. He doesn't find Bilbo or the dwarves, but does manage to find their ponies. The next day, Bilbo returns to Smaug's lair, where they have their famous conversation.
Well, thief, I smell you and I feel your air. yourself again. There is plenty and to spare.
But Bilbo was not quite so unlearned in dragon lore as all that, and if Smaug hoped to get him to come nearer so easily, he was disappointed. "No, thank you, O Smaug the Tremendous," he replied. "I did not come for presents. I only wished to have a look at you and see if you were truly as great as the tales say. I did not believe them."
Do you now?
Said the dragon, somewhat flattered, even though he did not believe a word of it. "Truly, songs and tales fall utterly short of the reality, O Smaug, the chiefest and greatest of calamities," replied Bilbo.
You have nice manners for a thief and a liar,
said the dragon.
You seem familiar with my name, but I don't seem to remember smelling you before. Who are you and where do you come from, may I ask?
You may indeed. I come from under the hill, and under the hills and over the hills my paths led. And through the air I am he that walks unseen.
So I can well believe,
said Smaug.
But that is hardly your usual name.
I'm the clue finder, the web cutter, the stinging fly. I was chosen for the lucky number.
Lovely titles,
sneered the dragon.
But lucky numbers don't always come off.
I am he that buries his friends alive and drowns them and draws them alive again from the water. I come from the end of a bag, but no bag went over me.
These don't sound so creditable,
scoffed Smaug. I am the friend of bears and the guest of eagles. I am ring winner and luck wearer. I am barrel rider, went on Bilbo, beginning to be pleased with his riddling.
That's better,
said Smaug.
But don't let your imagination run away with you.
This, of course, is the way to talk to dragons if you don't want to reveal your proper name, which is wise, and don't want to infuriate them by a flat refusal, which is also very wise. No dragon can resist the fascination of riddling talk and wasting time trying to understand it. There was a lot here which Smaug did not understand at all, though I expect you do, since you know all about Bilbo's adventures to which he was referring. But he thought he understood enough, and he chuckled in his wicked inside.
I thought so last night,
He smiled to himself.
Lakeman, some nasty scheme of those miserable tub-trading Lakemen, or I'm a lizard. I haven't been down that way for an age and an age, but I will soon alter that. Very well, O Barrel Rider,
He said aloud.
Maybe Barrel was your pony's name, and maybe not. Though I think it was fat enough. You may walk unseen, but you did not walk all the way. Let me tell you, I ate 6 ponies last night, and I shall catch and eat all the others before long. In return for the excellent meal, I will give you one piece of advice for your good. Do not have more to do with dwarves than you can help.
Dwarves? Said Bilbo in a pretending surprise.
Don't talk to me,
said Smaug.
I know the smell and taste of dwarf. No one better. Don't tell me that I can eat a dwarf-ridden pony and not know it. You'll come to a bad end if you go with such friends, thief, barrel rider. I don't mind if you go back and tell them so from me. But
he did not tell Bilbo that there was one smell he could not make out at all. Hobbit smell. It was quite outside his experience and puzzled him mightily.
I suppose you got a fair price for that cup last night?
He went on.
Come now, did you? Nothing at all. Well, that's just like them. And I suppose they are skulking outside, and your job is to do all the dangerous work and get what you can when I'm not looking for them. And you will get a fair share. Don't you believe it? If you get off alive, you will be lucky.
I tell you, he said, in an effort to remain loyal to his friends and to keep his end up, that gold was only an afterthought with us. We came over hill and under hill by wave and wind for revenge. Surely, O Smaug the unaccessibly wealthy, you must realize that your success has made you some bitter enemies. Then Smaug really did laugh, a devastating sound which shook Bilbo to the floor, while far up in the tunnel the dwarves huddled together and imagined that the hobbit had come to a sudden and a nasty end.
Revenge!
He snorted, and the light of his eyes lit the hall from floor to ceiling like scarlet lightning.
Revenge! The king under the mountain is dead, and where are his kin that dare seek revenge? Girion, Lord of Dale, is dead, and I have eaten his people like a wolf among sheep. And where are his sons that dare approach me? I kill where I wish, and none dare resist. I laid low the warriors of old, and their like is not in the world today. Then I was but young and tender. Now I am old and strong, strong, strong. Thief in the shadows,
He gloated.
my armor is like tenfold shields. My teeth are swords. My claws spears. The shock of my tail a thunderbolt. My wings a hurricane. And my breath death.
Smaug is enraged by the idea that they would dare attempt revenge upon him. Knowing that the men of Lake Town likely assisted this thief and his poor friends, he decides to destroy the town on the lake.
Barrel rider,
He snorted.
your feet came from the water side, and up the water you came without a doubt. I don't know your smell, but if you are not one of those men of the lake, you had their help. They shall see me and remember who is the real king under the mountain.
He rose in fire and went away south towards the running river. Smaug flies over the lake, avoiding the water so as not to quench his fire. He sets the town ablaze and destroys the great house with a swipe of his tail. As the destruction rages on, a thrush flies to Bard the bowman. Another result of Smaug laying on his treasure for so long is that his stomach possesses armor made of gold and gems, save for one bare spot. The thrush had overheard Bilbo telling the dwarves of the bare spot in Smaug's armor and relays this information to Bard. Bard fires his last arrow, the black arrow, which had been passed down from generations past, and hits the spot on the dragon's left breast. Smaug falls from the sky, destroying Esgaroth in his ruin. Smaug is slain, but his effects would be felt for days and years to come. Smaug's treasure would claim at least 2 more victims of dragon sickness. Thorin is the first, as he refuses to part with any of the treasure to help Bard and his people. The second comes after the events of The Hobbit. After Bilbo's back home, he learns from Gandalf and Balin that King Dain had given the Master of Lake Town some of the gold to rebuild what the dragon had destroyed. The Master instead takes the gold and flees into the Waste, a region north of the Lonely Mountain, where he would die of starvation. Despite the Master's treachery, Lake Town would indeed be rebuilt further north than before. Smaug's bones remained at the location of the former Lake Town. It is said that his bones could be seen from the shore, but that no one would dare go into the water to retrieve the gems that had lined his belly. Even in death, Smaug's very bones struck fear into the hearts of men.
While we don't know of any other dragons by name or by deed after Smaug's time, Gandalf implies that there are dragons still around after Smaug's death. In the Fellowship of the Ring, when Gandalf reveals to Frodo that Bilbo's ring is in fact the One Ring, he states, "It has been said that dragonfire could melt and consume the rings of power, but there is not now any dragon left on earth in which the old fire is hot enough. Nor was there ever any dragon, not even Calagon the Black, who could have harmed the One Ring, the ruling ring, for that was made by Sauron himself." It's yet another fun thing to think about, the possibility of dragons being around after Smaug. While Sauron and Morgoth understandably get much of the attention as all-time great literary villains, I find Smaug and his kind to be worthy of mention as well. In fact, depending on the day, I would often choose Glaurung as my favorite Tolkien villain. Dragons are certainly a very common element of fantasy storytelling. But as with everything from the Professor, there is something truly special about the dragon characters he crafts. From the enormous Calagon to the vile worm Glaurung, to the cunning fire drake Smaug, the dragons of Middle-earth are among the very best in history. As always, I want to say a huge thank you to all my Patreon and YouTube supporters who make this channel possible. Tom DeBombadil 19, Listen Me Lucinda, Rabbi Rob Thomas, Charles Leisure, CCDC Red Team, Joe Tepper, The Mighty Nim, Andrew Carlisle, Swirl Traveler, Matthew Jeffrey, Viking Lord, Alvin Einbert, Jeremy Daniel Derby, Madame Director, Leo Vittori, Sky Carcass, Slide Belts, Dane Ragnarsson, Berto Berg, Graham Darracott, The Dark-Haired One, Wyland, Michael Wu, and Debbie. If you enjoyed the artwork in this video, check out the artists in the description to purchase prints of their great work for yourself. See you next time on Lord of the Rings.
Nach wie vor ist es für mich wirklich unglaublich, wie erfolgreich ich mit dem bin, weil ich das System wirklich gut beherrsche. Man muss sich das einfach mal vor Augen führen, dass ich nach einem guten Jahr in der Villa den DAX so genau puntieren kann, dass ich da einfach perfekte Ein- und Ausstiege finde. Also für jemanden, der vorher nie Börsenerfahrung hatte, ist das mega. Ich bin Nina Fabi, ich bin 30 Jahre jung, komme aus Aachen, habe 2 Kinder. Ich war zuvor in Berlin lange tätig als HR-Businesspartner in einer Company und habe dann vor 3 Jahren im Rahmen meiner Elternzeit entschieden, mich der Börse zu widmen. Ich habe angefangen über Podcasts, über Bücher, über Websites mich zu belesen, mir Wissen anzueignen. Habe dann vor 2 Jahren in meine erste Ausbildung als Aktien- und Investorenausbildung investiert. Danach dann den zweiten Schritt gewagt und bin zu einer Villa und Arme gegangen. Da bin ich jetzt seit einem guten Jahr. Vorher habe ich meine Investitionen primär in Einzelaktien getätigt als Invest. Das Ganze habe ich in der ersten Ausbildung gelernt, wie man über die fundamentale Analyse unterschiedliche Indikatoren wie gleiche Rohstoffe etc. Einzelaktien zu guten Preisen kaufen kann. Für das Ganze braucht man natürlich auch ein bisschen Zeit und Geduld. Das ist für die Anlage soweit in Ordnung. Aber wenn wir halt in einem Bärenmarkt stecken, dann ist es schwierig, aus der Börse mit dieser Strategie zu investieren. Weil ich fühle mich bei weitem noch nicht so weit, dass ich da professionell wirklich als Investorin agieren kann und auch in unterschiedlichen Marktzeiten gut aus der Börse Geld rausziehen. Und das war dann auch mein Beweggrund, mich bei Mozilla und Arne und bei Fibonacci zu melden. Ich bin auf Fibonacci Code über eine Podcast aufmerksam geworden. Nasila wurde dort interviewt und ich wusste direkt, ja, das muss ich lernen. Zum kostenlosen Erstgespräch vergingen circa 4 Wochen und bereits im ersten Gespräch war für mich klar, ich mache das. Wir haben dann noch ein Folgegespräch gemeinsam mit meinem Mann vereinbart und Anja hat uns alles so gut erklärt. Er hat mir all meine Ängste genommen, meine Unsicherheit, die ich natürlich trotz meiner ersten Ausbildung auch irgendwo noch hatte. Und meine Bedenken zu Beginn waren vor allem der Zeitfaktor. Also ich bin Zweifachmama, mein Sohn war von diesem Jahr noch ein Säugling. Und ich habe mich halt gefragt, ob ich das überhaupt zeitlich schaffe. Inhaltlich wusste ich direkt, wie gesagt, nach dem ersten Telefonat mit Anja, dass ich das machen möchte. Aber natürlich war so die Frage, wann soll ich das ganze Material lernen, wann kann ich den Markt beleuchten. Und dann meldete sich Mozilla dann auf meine Bedenken auch bei mir telefonisch. Sie hat mir erklärt, dass jeden Tag unterschiedliche Calls passieren zu unterschiedlichen Zeitpunkten und ich nicht in alle Calls rein muss, sondern mir einfach auswähle, welche für mich passen. Und auch die Module, dass ich die frei abarbeiten kann. Also ich konnte die dann am Wochenende machen, wenn die Kinder schlafen, so in meinem Tempo habe ich mich dann. Die Zusammenarbeit ist in erster Linie recht professionell, wo die Möglichkeit haben, tagtäglich Fragen zu stellen, in den Austausch zu gehen, es ist nicht so, dass man sich als Kunde fühlt die ganze Zeit, sondern wir sind eine Zielgruppe.
The deep blue sea, vast, mysterious, and home to creatures both horrifying and awe-inspiring. This is Pantheon mythology, and these are the sea creatures from across mythology and folklore. Just quickly, if you love mythology, be sure to check out our clothing brand Pantheon Apparel. Here you'll find epic designs inspired by mythology, folklore and legends. We ship worldwide and are rated excellent on Trustpilot. You'll find a link in the description. Right, let's dive in. Starting things off with Scylla, one of Greek mythology's most fearsome sea monsters. Scylla wasn't always the monster sailors feared. She was once a beautiful nymph. The transformation into a creature with a maiden's torso and 6 dog heads, each with razor-sharp teeth, came courtesy of a potent spell by the sorceress Kirke, or Circe, driven by jealousy. Scylla resided in a narrow strait across from the whirlpool Charybdis, posing a significant danger to any ship that dared pass through. This strait was a real maritime hazard, blending natural and supernatural threats. Charybdis, counterpart to the monstrous Scylla, is another legendary figure from Greek mythology that embodies the terror of the sea. Unlike Scylla's partly human form, Charybdis is purely elemental, often depicted as a massive whirlpool. Originating from the stories told by Homer in the Odyssey, Charybdis was said to reside opposite Scylla in a narrow channel of water. 3 times a day, Charybdis would swallow huge amounts of water, then belch them back out, creating whirlpools capable of dragging a ship and its entire crew to the ocean floor. According to mythology, Charybdis was originally a sea nymph who was transformed into this fearsome whirlpool as punishment by Zeus for stealing Heracles' cattle. Cetus, in Greek mythology, is a massive sea monster sent by Poseidon to terrorize the kingdom of Ethiopia. As a punishment for Queen Cassiopeia's boastfulness about her daughter Andromeda's beauty surpassing that of the Nereids, who are sea nymphs known for their stunning looks. Desperate to save their kingdom, King Cepheus and Queen Cassiopeia were advised by an oracle to sacrifice Andromeda to Cetus. Chained to a rock beside the sea, Andromeda awaited her grim fate, only to be rescued by the hero Perseus, who had coincidentally just slain Medusa and possessed her head, which could turn onlookers to stone. Perseus used it to petrify Cetus, saving Andromeda and halting the creature's reign of terror. Staying in ancient Greece, we have the Sirens, who are renowned for their captivating songs that lure sailors to their doom. Initially depicted as half-bird, half-woman creatures, their form evolved over time, often appearing more human or mermaid-like in later myths. These mythical beings are best known from Homer's Odyssey, where they nearly ensnared Odysseus with their melodies, which are hauntingly beautiful yet fatal to those who listen. The Sirens were believed to have originated as companions to Persephone and transformed into their avian form as punishment for failing to prevent her abduction by Hades. The Sirens also appear in their Argonautica, where they encountered Jason and the Argonauts. To counteract the Sirens' songs, Orpheus, who was part of Jason's crew, played music that drowned out the Sirens, saving the crew from their fate. The Flying Dutchman is unfortunately not a superhero from the Netherlands, but instead a legendary ghost ship from European maritime folklore, believed to be doomed to sail the seas for eternity. The story centres around a Dutch sea captain, often named Hendrik van der Decken, who, during a treacherous storm at the Cape of Good Hope, vowed to round the Cape even if it took him till doomsday. As a result of his defiance, whether cursed by an angel or the devil in different versions, his ship and crew were condemned to sail forever, never to make port. The Flying Dutchman is considered a bad omen for sailors, with sightings of the spectral ship said to foretell disaster. Reports of sightings have been made as recently as the late 19th and early 20th centuries, most notably in 1881, when Prince George of Wales, later King George V, and his crew reportedly saw the phantom vessel glowing red off the coast of Australia. Cthulhu is a terrifying cosmic entity first introduced by H.P. Lovecraft in his 1928 short story, The Call of Cthulhu. Described as a massive being with a humanoid form, Cthulhu has an octopus-like head, a body covered in scaly, rubbery skin, and long, narrow wings. Lovecraft portrayed Cthulhu as a great old one, a powerful and ancient being that came from the stars before the dawn of humanity. The creature resides in the sunken city of R'lyeh, deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, where it lies dormant, awaiting the right conditions to rise again. Cthulhu is central to Lovecraft's Cthulhu mythos, a universe populated by otherworldly deities and cosmic horrors. The being communicates with humans through telepathy, often driving those who encounter it to madness. Worshippers of Cthulhu, human and otherwise, believe that one day the creature will awaken and reclaim dominion over the earth. Moving into the Norse realm, we encounter Jormungandr, the Midgard serpent, a colossal figure of chaos in Norse mythology. Born from the union of the trickster god Loki and the giantess Angerboda, Jormungandr is so vast that he encircles the entire world, biting his own tail. According to the myths, Jormungandr's release of his tail signifies the beginning of Ragnarok, the end of the world in Norse cosmology. Jormungandr's most famous legend involves his deadly rivalry with Thor, the god of thunder. This enmity is highlighted during a mythical fishing trip where Thor attempts to capture the serpent using an ox head as bait. The encounter ends with the giant Hymir cutting the line, allowing Jormungandr to escape back into the depths, setting the stage for their final battle at Ragnarok. During this apocalyptic event, Thor and Jormungandr finally kill each other, Thor succumbing to the serpent's venom shortly after dealing the fatal blow. Next we have perhaps the superstar of sea monsters, the Kraken. Originating from Scandinavian folklore, this legendary creature is portrayed as a massive beast lurking in the deep seas, capable of dragging ships and their entire crews into the ocean's abyss with its enormous tentacles. The Kraken's description as a gigantic cephalopod resembling a colossal squid likely stems from actual marine biology. Sailors' accounts and sightings of giant squids might have fueled the myths surrounding this fearsome monster. The Kraken's legendary status is built on its immense size and terrifying power. According to historical accounts, it could be mistaken for a chain of islands when resting at the sea's surface due to its massive bulk. When stirred, it was said to create whirlpools strong enough to pull down even the largest ships, making it one of the most feared creatures in old maritime lore. Lyngbaka is another fascinating monster of the seas from Norse mythology. This creature, described in the medieval Icelandic Uvar Ords saga, was said to dwell in the Greenland Sea, masquerading as a heather-covered island. Sailors, mistaking Lyngbaka for land, would often anchor their ships and step onto its back, only to be pulled to their watery graves as a massive whale-like creature submerged itself beneath the waves. Its name derives from the Icelandic words Lyngi, meaning heather, and bak, meaning back, symbolizing its deceptive appearance. The Umibozu, or sea monk, is a mysterious and fearsome spirit from Japanese folklore, often described as a gigantic black humanoid figure with a bald head resembling that of a Buddhist monk. Umibozu appears suddenly to sailors on calm seas, turning the waters violent and tumultuous. This yokai has a known reputation for either destroying ships outright or demanding a barrel from the crew, only to use it to capsize the vessel and drown them. One famous way to escape the Umibozu is to offer it a bottomless barrel, which confuses the creature long enough for the sailors to make their escape. Legends about the Umibozu are numerous across Japan, with some tales suggesting the spirit is born from the vengeful souls of drowned monks. The Isa Onna in Japanese folklore is often referred to as the coast woman. This vampiric yokai primarily inhabits rocky coastlines, particularly in the Kyushu region. Isa Onna appears as a beautiful woman, her wet hair cascading down as she lures fishermen or travellers towards her. Once close enough, she reveals her true nature, using her long hair to ensnare her victims and suck their blood. In some versions of the legend, she is depicted with a dragon-like lower body, which she can make invisible, adding to her deceptive allure. This yokai is deeply feared, as she is known to pull her prey into the sea, drowning them beneath the waves. Isa Onna is particularly active during special occasions like New Year's Eve or the Ogon Festival, when spirits are believed to roam the earth. Ningen, a captivating figure in Japanese cryptozoology, is often described as a gigantic humanoid creature that reportedly inhabits the icy waters of the Antarctic. Witnesses claim this mysterious being possesses a pale, almost translucent body resembling that of a human, albeit lacking distinct facial features, which adds to its eerie allure. The term ningen translates to human in Japanese, emphasizing the creature's human-like shape. Eyewitness accounts describe ningen as being about 20 to 30 meters long, with flipper-like appendages instead of arms, and some reports even suggest it has a tail reminiscent of a mermaid or a large aquatic mammal. The kappa is a mischievous Japanese water spirit, known for its amphibious nature and often depicted as a small humanoid creature with greenish reptilian skin, webbed hands, and a dish-like depression on its head filled with water. This water is essential to its strength and survival, and if it spills, the kappa is weakened or even dies. Kappa are known for residing in rivers, ponds, and lakes, where they can be both playful and dangerous, sometimes pulling unsuspecting victims into the water. The ningyo, also from Japan, are often compared to mermaids, though with a more eerie and unique twist. They are depicted as a fish-like being with a human face, sometimes possessing features such as monkey-like mouths or even horns. It is believed that the ningyo brings both blessings and curses. Catching one is said to grant longevity or even eternal life, especially if its flesh is consumed. But this gift is often accompanied by disastrous events such as storms or bad luck. In one popular tale, consuming the flesh of a ningyo granted a young girl known as Yobikuni a decent life of 800 years before becoming a nun and eventually dying of old age. While some believe the creature is a bringer of fortune, many fishermen would release the ningyo back to the sea to avoid any calamity that might follow its capture. From Japanese-style mermaids to Irish, we have the Mero, a captivating sea creature from Celtic mythology. Typically depicted with a human upper body and fish-like lower half, female Meros are known for their enchanting beauty, long hair, and hauntingly melodic voices. These beings wear a magical red cap, or kohulin druth, which allows them to travel between land and sea. While female Meros are often portrayed as kind and capable of forming relationships with humans, male Meros are described as hideous and monstrous. In some legends, Meros marry humans, but their longing for the ocean eventually draws them back to the sea, where they are believed to lure sailors with their alluring songs, much like Greek sirens. Selkies are mystical creatures from Irish, Scottish and Faroese folklore, known for their ability to transform between seal and human forms. In their seal form, they are typically large, dark-eyed seals, but when they come ashore they shed their seal skin to reveal human form, often described as exceptionally beautiful. The key to their transformation is their seal skin, and if a human finds and hides the skin, the Selkie is trapped in human form, unable to return to the sea until the skin is recovered. Many Selkie stories involve themes of love and loss, where a human, often a fisherman, captures a female Selkie by hiding her seal skin and marries her. However, these unions are often bittersweet, as the Selkie remains drawn to the ocean. Eventually, if the Selkie finds her seal skin, she returns to the sea, leaving behind her human family. Male Selkies are less commonly depicted, but they are believed to be irresistibly attractive to human women, sometimes appearing during storms to seek out lovers on land. The Ikushka is a deadly water spirit from Scottish folklore, known as one of the most malevolent and dangerous creatures in Celtic mythology. This shape-shifting water horse is often found in sea lochs, freshwater lakes and sometimes even in the ocean. At first glance, it appears as a normal, beautiful horse, luring unsuspecting travellers to mount it. However, once on its back, the rider becomes magically stuck, and the Ikuska charges into the water, where it drowns and devours its victim, leaving only their liver to float to the surface. The Nuka-Lavi is a nightmare-inducing creature, particularly associated with the Orkney Islands. This grotesque sea demon is described as a nightmarish fusion of horse and human, with its rider grotesquely fused to the horse's back. What makes the Nuka-Lavi even more horrifying is its skinless body, exposing red raw flesh, pulsating veins, and visible muscles. The creature's breath is said to be toxic, bringing disease, drought, and death to crops and livestock. Legends describe it as emerging from the sea to wreak havoc on land during the colder months, particularly in the winter, but it cannot cross fresh water. In many tales, it terrorizes islanders, leaving devastation in its wake. The only protection from the Nuka-Lavi is to cross a stream, which the demon is unable to follow. The Loch Ness Monster, affectionately known as Nessie, is one of the most famous mythical creatures, said to inhabit the depths of Loch Ness in the Scottish Highlands. The legend dates back to ancient times, with early references found in Pictish stone carvings and the 7th century writings about Saint Columba, who supposedly encountered a water beast in the River Ness in 565 AD. Nessie's modern fame began in 1933 when a couple reported seeing a large creature in the loch, which spurred international interest and countless sightings. Description of the monster vary, but it is often depicted as a long-necked, humpbacked creature, sparking comparisons to prehistoric reptiles like the plesiosaur. However, much of the photographic evidence, including the famous 1934 surgeon's photograph, has since been debunked as hoaxes. The Ahuizotl is a terrifying water monster from Aztec mythology, often described as having a dog-like body with dark fur, small ears, and a long prehensile tail ending in a human-like hand. This mythical creature lurks in lakes and rivers, particularly around the Tenochtitlan, waiting to drag unsuspecting victims into the water. According to the myth, it uses its tail hand to pull people into the depths, where it feasts on their eyes, teeth, and nails. The bodies of its victims, after being drowned, would float back to the surface, though only priests were permitted to handle them. This creature was considered a friend of the rain gods, especially Tlaloc, the god of rain and fertility, and its victims were believed to be taken to Tlalocan, the paradise of the water gods. Sipakli is a fearsome and foundational figure, often depicted as a primordial sea monster with a body that combines the traits of a crocodile, fish, and toad. Its most striking feature is the presence of extra mouths at every joint, symbolizing its insatiable hunger. Sipakli is closely linked to the Aztec creation myth, in which the gods Quetzalcoatl and Tezcatlipoca work together to tear the creature apart. From Sipakli's dismembered body, the gods formed the earth, the heavens, and the underworld, making this monster both a symbol of destruction and the foundation of life itself. The Makara is a legendary sea creature from Hindu and Buddhist mythology, often depicted as a hybrid of both terrestrial and aquatic animals.
Its most common depiction includes the front half of a land animal, such as a crocodile, elephant or deer, and the back half of a sea creature, like a fish or seal. This fantastical mix of animals symbolizes its connection to both earth and water, making it a powerful guardian of thresholds and protector of sacred spaces like temples. In Hindu mythology, the Makara serves as a vahana, or vehicle of deities such as Varuna, the god of the oceans, and the river goddess, Gunga. It is also a symbol of fertility and chaos, associated with the waters that bring life and order to the cosmos. The Luscar is a fearsome sea monster from Caribbean folklore, particularly associated with the Bahamas. This creature is believed to dwell in the deep blue holes and underwater caves around.
Dich interessiert vielleicht das Thema Reiki und Energieheilung, vielleicht ist es damit ein bisschen beschäftigt. Wenn dir dieser Bereich der Persönlichkeitsentwicklung gefällt, dann gefällt dir ganz sicher die neue Instant Change. Instant Change ist eine Möglichkeit, das gesamte menschliche System zu reinformieren, ohne dass es deine persönliche Energie braucht. Und Menschen bekommen ganz schnell und nachhaltig neue Erfolge. Ängste fallen ab, Sorgen, Zweifel, nicht nur das, sondern das ganze System richtet sich wieder aus. Wie so eine Art Reset, kannst du dir vorstellen. Okay? Und jetzt stell dir mal vor, du könntest vielen Menschen helfen oder dir selbst helfen, wie du möchtest, mit einer neuen sagenhaften Methode, mit der du nicht über Probleme sprechen musst. Ja, es geht nicht darum, dass du irgendwelche alten Sachen besprichst und was du tust, sondern es geht direkt um schnelle und nachhaltige Veränderung. Wie wäre das für dich? Willst du das mal ausprobieren? Lass es uns ausprobieren. Meld dich hier mal zum Online-Training. Wenn du dich angemeldet hast, einfach auf den Link klicken, dann bist du im Online-Training drin. Und im Online-Training zeige ich dir genau, wie ich Instant Change entwickelt habe, 8 Jahre lang aus den neuesten Erkenntnissen der Neurowissenschaften und der Quantenphysik. Danach gehen wir direkt in die Anwendung rein. Wir machen direkt eine Gruppenanwendung und du wirst ein wesentliches Unterschied. Und mach das. Sei dabei, lass uns nicht lange über Transformation oder was auch immer sprechen, über Persönlichkeitsentwicklung, über Quantenheilung, über Energieheilung, über whatever, sondern lass es uns doch einfach mal tun. Okay? Lass es uns tun. Meld dich an. Ich freue mich riesig auf dich. Du wirst direkt in der Gruppenanwendung eine Veränderung spüren. Und ich habe noch viele andere Dinge mit reingepackt, die dir sicher gefallen werden. Okay? Also, let's do it. Lass es uns tun. Lass es uns anpacken, egal welches Problem gerade da ist oder egal welche Ziele, Wünsche und Träume du gerade hast. Lass uns jetzt ranmachen, diese zu verfolgen. Okay? Meld dich an. Ich freue mich riesig auf dich. Dein Daniel.
Daniel so besonders ist eben also dieses Fülle-Prinzip. Also wir werden ja auch immer wieder sehr, sehr verwöhnt. Und es macht einfach auch was mit uns und da dürfen wir eben halt auch ihm mitgehen und auch dran wachsen. Denn das Miteinander ist natürlich auch was ganz, ganz Wertvolles, mit den Teilnehmern sich austauschen zu können, sich gegenseitig auch zu motivieren, dran zu bleiben und diese Energie, die liebe ich halt sehr. Also die Übung heute, die wir jetzt gerade gemacht haben, die fand ich sensationell, weil wir sind immer in unserer eigenen Box unterwegs, wir haben unsere eigene Brille auf, wir denken immer wieder die gleichen Gedanken und es ist wirklich schwer, davon wegzukommen. Und wenn wir dann Impulse haben von Menschen, die uns gar nicht kennen und die bringen ihre Ideen rein, das hat mir ganz, ganz viel Input gegeben und es hat mich total begeistert. Leute, es gibt keine Hindernisse. Hindernisse werden überwunden, Hindernisse sind da zum Überwinden und wir haben alle Instant Change. Also machen, machen, machen.
Those fake ads really drive you mad, huh? The game looks so fun in the ads, but when you download it, it's a totally different game. That's crazy, right? But today, I finally found a game that's exactly the same as it's shown in the ads. ready for this. Yeah, nice! Oh, yes, I know where the best loot is hidden. Look at that alt!
On the Andros Island and other parts of the Caribbean. Described as a hybrid between a giant octopus and a shark, the Luscar is said to have enormous tentacles capable of dragging ships and swimmers into the depths. Some accounts even suggest it can grow up to 75 feet in length, making it a terrifying presence in a deep sea. Local legends claim that the tides in these blue holes are caused by the Luscar breathing in and out, creating powerful whirlpools that can pull anything nearby into the caverns. Some Bahamian fishermen even view the creature as a guardian of the blue holes, a protector of the ocean's delicate ecosystems. However, its predatory nature makes it a source of fear, with tales of it devouring both sea creatures and humans. River Muma is a mystical figure in Jamaican folklore, often depicted as a mermaid-like water spirit who resides in rivers. She is both feared and revered, guarding the rivers and the fish, which are considered her children. She is frequently seen sitting by the river, combing her long, flowing hair with a golden comb. However, anyone who catches sight of her risks falling into a trance and being pulled into the water. It is said that attempts to capture her or harm her result in rivers drying up and the fish disappearing. A famous tale linked to River Muma is that of the Golden Table, a treasure that occasionally rises from the river's depths. Greed leads many to try and steal the table, but they inevitably meet a watery demise as the table sinks back into the river, dragging its would-be captors with it. The Vodyanoi is a nasty water spirit from Slavic mythology, known for inhabiting rivers, lakes and ponds. Often depicted as an old man with frog-like appearance, greenish skin and algae-covered body, the Vodyanoi is notorious for luring humans into the water, particularly those who disrespect his domain. His primary pastime is drowning unsuspecting swimmers or fishermen, especially those who bathe on holy days or fail to show proper reverence to the water. The spirit holds power over aquatic life and is even believed to collect the souls of his victims, storing them in porcelain jars. These jars are said to represent his status and power among other spirits. Despite his generally malevolent nature, Slavic traditions include rituals and offerings such as bread or tobacco to appease Vodyanoi and ensure safe passage across water bodies. The Rusalka is another powerful and haunting water spirit from Slavic mythology. Traditionally depicted as a beautiful young woman, she is believed to be the soul of a woman who died tragically, often through drowning. These spirits are closely associated with lakes and rivers, where they lure unsuspecting men with their beauty and ethereal singing. While enchanting, the Rusalka is a dangerous figure, as she is known to drown her victims either out of vengeance or in response to her tragic origins. In earlier traditions, Rusalki were tied to fertility and were not inherently malevolent. They were believed to bring life-giving moisture to crops during spring. However, over time, the Rusalka evolved into a more sinister figure associated with death and unclean spirits, particularly those who died prematurely or violently. The Xiaolong is a revered aquatic dragon in Chinese mythology, often described as a scaled dragon or flood dragon. This powerful creature is associated with water, controlling rain, rivers and floods, and is considered a master of the aquatic realm. While it is considered a lesser dragon in comparison to the mighty Long, Chinese dragon, the Xiaolong can evolve to a full dragon after centuries of cultivation. Its deep connection to water makes it both a bringer of life-giving rain and a force of destruction through floods. The Telesa are powerful spirit women of Samoan mythology, often connected with natural elements including water. One particular form, Telesa Vasaloloa, is deeply tied to the sea, embodying the ocean's might and controlling the tides and waves. Created by the god Tangaloa Lagi to protect the earth, Telesa Vasaloloa is linked to the vast ocean and its life-sustaining forces. These water-linked Telesa guard the seas and are believed to punish those who disrespect the environment, particularly the waters they protect. The Taniva is a legendary creature from Maori mythology, often described as a guardian or monster that inhabits lakes, rivers, or the sea. These supernatural beings take on various forms, ranging from giant lizards to dragons, and sometimes even appear as sharks or whales. In coastal and waterbound traditions, Taniwa are deeply connected to the ocean, guarding specific waterways or dangerous areas like caves and pools. In some stories, they are seen as protectors of a tribe, safeguarding people from harm, while in other tales, they're portrayed as fearsome creatures that capture or eat those who trespass on their territory. Famous Taniwa, such as Tuhirangi, are known to have protected canoes and travellers in the waters of New Zealand. However, not all Taniwa are benevolent. Some, like Tutai Paroporo, began as harmless creatures but became dangerous over time, transforming into powerful beings that terrorize rivers and seas. The Aspidokaloni is a mythical sea creature with links to medieval folklore and even ancient Greece, often described as an enormous turtle or whale. Its most distinctive trait is its deceptive appearance. Its back is covered with sand, rocks and vegetation, making it look like a small habitable island. Unwary sailors would often anchor their ships on its back, believing they had found safe land. Once the sailors disembarked and lit fires, the creature would submerge, dragging the ships and their crews to a watery grave. This sea monster was a symbol of deceit and illusion, commonly appearing in medieval bestiaries and allegorical tales representing the dangers of trusting appearances. The aspid or Kalene's name is derived from the Greek word aspis, shield, and kalene, turtle, emphasizing its turtle-like form. The Bakunawa is a fearsome sea serpent from Philippine mythology, known for its role in causing lunar eclipses. Described as a massive dragon-like creature that dwells in the ocean, it would rise from the depths to swallow the moons in the sky. According to ancient Filipino legends, there were once 7 moons that illuminated the night, but the beast, envious of their beauty, devoured them one by one, leaving only 1 moon in the sky. When an eclipse occurs, it is believed that the Bakunawa is attempting to swallow the last moon, and the people would bang pots and make loud noises to scare the creature away. The Leviathan is a colossal sea monster rooted in Jewish mythology and often depicted as a giant serpent, dragon, or whale-like creature. Its origins trace back to pre-biblical Mesopotamian mythology, where it shares similarities with other sea monsters like the Ugaritic serpent Lotan. In the Hebrew Bible, the Leviathan is referenced in several books, including Psalms, Job, and Isaiah, where it is described as a creature of chaos that God ultimately overcomes to establish order in the world. Leviathan plays a key role in the ancient Jewish conception of the cosmic battle between chaos and divine order. In some traditions, God created 2 Leviathans, but killed the female to prevent them from reproducing and overwhelming the world. The remaining Leviathan, the symbol of chaos, will be slain at the end of time during the Messianic age, with its flesh served as a grand feast for the righteous. The Nguruvilu is a water spirit from the mythology of the Mapuche people of Chile. Its name comes from the Mapudungun words for fox, nguru, and snake, filu, as it is often described as a creature with the head and forelegs of a fox and a long serpentine body. The Nguruvilu inhabits rivers and lakes, where it uses its cunning to trick people into crossing seemingly shallow waters. Once someone steps in, the creature creates a whirlpool with its powerful tail, pulling the victim under to drown them. Despite its dangerous nature, it is also viewed as a guardian of water, ensuring respect and reverence of the natural world. In some stories, it can be placated by those who show respect for the waters it guards. A shaman, or machi, is often called upon to subdue the creature if it becomes too aggressive, using a ritual to banish it from the area. Ikuturso is a malevolent sea monster from Finnish mythology, often described as a terrifying multi-headed or tentacled creature dwelling in the cold waters of the Baltic Sea. It is portrayed as both a sea monster and a god of war and disease. In some myths, Ikuturso is linked to destruction, chaos, and even the spread of plagues, earning him the title of the Father of Diseases. He plays a notable role in the Kalevala, Finland's national epic, where he's summoned by the sorceress Ruohi to stop the theft of the magical artifact known as the Sampo. However, he is ultimately defeated by the hero Väinämöinen, who forces him to retreat back to the depths of the sea, never to return. The Bunyip is a legendary creature from Australian Aboriginal folklore, described as a water-dwelling monster that inhabits swamps, rivers and billabongs. The physical characteristics of the Bunyip vary widely across different indigenous stories, but it is often portrayed as a large creature with features like a long neck, clippers, tusks, and a terrifying, eerie cry. Despite its terrifying appearance, in many stories the Bunyip is sometimes depicted as a protector of nature, rather than a man-eating predator. Its connection to water makes it a symbol of the unknown and potentially dangerous aspects of the Australian landscape. While the bunyip's origin lies in Aboriginal oral tradition, European settlers in the 19th century embraced and further spread the legend, attributing strange sounds and unexplained animal bones to the creature. The Mudjugwan is a formidable creature from Ngarrindjeri mythology, known to haunt the waters of the Murray River and Lake Alexandrina in Australia. Often depicted as a terrifying hybrid of man and fish, this water dweller possesses large clawed hands capable of pulling unsuspecting boats beneath the surface. Used as a cautionary tale, the Mudjugwan warns Aboriginal children to avoid the riverside after dark. It embodies the power of nature, representing both the dangers lurking in the water and the consequences of greed, as one tale recounts how a selfish man was transformed into the creature as punishment for overfishing. The Arklute is a powerful shape-shifting creature from Inuit mythology, known for its ability to transform between a killer whale, orca, in the sea and a wolf on land. This mythical being represents the interconnectedness of the Arctic's harsh environments, embodying the strength and cunning of both animals. When in the water, the Arklute takes form of a fierce orca, highly respected by the Inuit for its hunting prowess. On land, it transforms into a wolf, a symbol of survival and adaptability in the Arctic tundra. The Arklute is known to be a dangerous predator, feared for its ability to hunt both at sea and on land. In some stories, its wolf tracks lead directly to the ocean, hinting at its dual nature. As vast as the oceans themselves are the legends and myths of sea creatures that we've barely skimmed the surface of today, so apologies for any miss. We've traversed stormy seas and explored shadowy depths, encountering the most awe-inspiring and terrifying monsters ever to emerge in mythology and folklore. These creatures are not just figments of maritime lore. They are symbols of the unknown, embodying the fears and fascinations of generations across the globe. Each story, each creature reflects a unique cultural insight into the human relationship with the mysterious world beneath the waves.